Hello folks and welcome to the Vertigo Tea Party and another tea time. Today we're going to talk about paid for video coverage. Recently it's been announced that the Yogscast, which is a very big YouTube channel, they have about 7 million subscribers. They're going to be covering a game called Space Engineers. They're going to be doing several special videos for the game. In payback for that, the company Keen Software, who makes Space Engineers, is going to give them a cut of the revenue and sales of the game for a month, presumably while they're doing these special videos. And then, of course, once the month's over, it just goes right back to they only make ad revenue on any of the ads they show on those videos. This has caused quite a lot of discussion. There's been a lot of videos about this. So I'm definitely not the first to talk about this. And if you want to hear people who talk about it better, I would probably suggest somebody like Total Biscuit. But if you want another perspective, well, here's mine. So I think it's an interesting discussion. I think it's actually a very interesting discussion. And I'm actually quite glad I kind of get to be part of it in one very, very small way. Very small way. The question comes up that if you're allowing these YouTubers to cover these games and get paid for it, doesn't that destroy a lot of the credibility of these YouTubers? Because a lot of the pull for these people is that they're people just like me. They're just normal folks who decide, hey, I want to record myself playing video games. They do it. It turns out they're very good at it. They're very funny. They're very entertaining. And they get this huge following and they explode. And a lot of people like them, not just because they're entertaining or funny, which is both. They like them because a lot of times they feel honest. It feels like just another person on the other side of the screen. It's not, IGN or Kotaku or some other big media outlet that's just posting faceless reviews and, you got Dragon Age 2, an 80 score. You obviously paid off. And anybody who gave Dragon Age 2 an 80 score obviously was paid off. But that's beside the point. People don't trust these media outlets that just give these reviews. But these YouTubers who they watch every day, they get to know them as individuals and they trust them more. But now you've got money in the mix, because before you're making money off of ads, right? But now you're getting paid directly by the game. So the obvious question is, are you going to give me an honest review? Are you going to be as brutal on this game as you would on any other that you're not being paid for? Because most people are not going to do that for multiple reasons. One, the obvious reason is that, well, you don't want to piss off the developers that are paying you to cover their game. And right now I'm kind of talking in general terms about getting paid to cover the game. Like if EA came up to me and says, hey, we're going to give you an advanced copy of Sims 4. We're going to pay you $100 per video that you cover Sims 4. How inclined do you think I'm going to be to talk crap about Sims 4? How inclined do you think I'm going to be to post videos of all the bugs and how bad it is? And how inclined do you think EA is going to be to keep paying me to show off the games if I'm just talking bad about it? So that's a very legitimate question to ask, is can we trust their opinions anymore? At least on the games that they're getting paid to cover. Furthermore, along those lines, are there other games that they're covering that they're getting paid for that we don't know about? Now this brings their whole reputation into question. It's like, well, all these other games that they praise, were they getting paid like under the table about that? Was there some small disclaimer somewhere deep down in the YouTube comments or in the YouTube video description that nobody read that said, oh, by the way, we're getting paid this. We're getting paid to cover this. Or some discreet message that says, thank you for XYZ company for making this possible, as their little way of saying, oh, by the way, we get paid to do this. And of course, that spreads to all YouTubers. Total Biscuit gives a review to a game that you hate, or he really likes this game that most people seem to hate. Well, obviously he was paid off, right? He couldn't have possibly liked it if, he wasn't paid to do it. So this can actually not just tarnish their reputation, but the reputation of other YouTubers as well. So a lot of people are concerned about this situation, both I guess on an overall moral level and how it might affect them and people's perspectives of them as an honest channel. So first, I want to talk about just the idea of doing this. The idea of either getting paid directly to cover a game. In other words, my previous example where EA comes to me and pays me per video, or however you want to do it, to cover a game, or some other method such as this where they get, I would get a portion of revenue for a month or 2 months or 2 weeks of sales as long as I cover their game at all. I'm okay with this idea. I am all right with this idea in theory. I am very big, though. There's a very big caveat. You must be transparent with this. You must make it absolutely clear to people that you are doing this, in my opinion. And I don't mean a small description hiding in the YouTube, video details. I don't mean a 0.5 second annotation at the end that a lot of people have turned off in the first place. It goes, oh, by the way, we're paid to do this. I don't mean any of that crap. I mean making it very, very clear that you're doing this in the video. As a matter of fact, Total Biscuit, either today or yesterday, he had talked about this particular issue, and then he also announced that going forward, he's mentioned in the description of the description of the video, if he's been paid to cover a game. But now going forward, he's actually going to take it a step further. And the beginning of any video that has paid coverage of any kind, he's going to have a splash screen which indicates that. I very much respect that, and I think that is the way that it needs to be done. If you're paid monetarily or any kind of significant way, it needs to be displayed up front. And you must be transparent about this, in my opinion. There's two sides of this. One, it's the trust issue, right? If I'm open, or whoever is open about doing it, then I think less people will have an issue with it. Because let's be honest, you're not going to hide it, especially in this day and age of the interwebs and anonymous insider reporting and all this other stuff. If you're taking money to promote these games, it's probably going to come out eventually, especially if you're a larger channel. It's going to come out eventually, and when it does, people are very much going to distrust you going forward because you were not clear with them. And especially if you try to back off and say, well, we put a little link in the description of the video. Nobody reads the descriptions of the damn videos, especially when you hide it at the very bottom. That's a BS excuse. Nobody's going to buy it, and it's probably just going to make them more angry at you. And the second side of all this is there actually is legal questions here, where if you are advertising a game or you're showing off a game and you're getting paid for it, but you're not disclosing it in a manner that is deemed appropriate by whatever organization handles that, I don't know if it's the FCC or whoever does that, then you could seriously be in trouble. This is not just me internet lawyering it up. I did read an article that discussed with a member of the FCC or whoever it was, not FCC, but FTC probably, Federal Trade Commission, who specifically said that, yeah, if this is happening and we're alerted to it, we may investigate it. And if it's true, they could be in trouble. And she was pretty clear that it couldn't be just something hidden off that you couldn't see. It had to be something that the viewer was almost impossible for them to miss. So there's that whole legal question. I'm not going to dive too much into that because I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going to pretend I know the law. I'm just, on that end, I'm just reciting what I've heard. But that is something that still be considered. But, when you're trying to build a community and you're trying to build an audience, you want their trust, right? And that's part of the reason they enjoy your content a lot of times, especially when you're recommending games and other things that they might enjoy. That's a big part of the YouTuber, is the trust. So I think it's very important to be transparent. That's why I say it's okay to do this, but I do think it's very transparent. Up until now, at least on this issue, the Yogscast is being very upfront, and they're saying, hey, this is the deal we have. So as far as a moral side, again, I think it's okay as long as you fully disclose it. Now, in reality, could I see this going bad? Absolutely, I could see it going bad. I could see people not being transparent with this. I could see people trying to get around it, saying, well, they didn't give me money, but they gave me stock in the company. Or they gave me a bunch of really cool PC hardware. Or they gave me a bunch of PC keys that I might have sold on eBay. Things like that, I could see that happening as well. So I I don't like the slippery slope argument because the slippery slope is a logical fallacy. But it's one of the logical fallacies I have the most problems with, because while it's technically true, a lot of times you still have to watch out for it because it absolutely can happen, especially when you have people who are going to just abuse the system because they don't care about the repercussions. They just want to get whatever they can get out of it and then move on. So I think it's something that concerns me, even though I'm okay with it, if that makes sense, and hopefully I've made clear why it concerns me, because I think it's something that can be abused. And the problem is, for people like me and others, is that when other people abuse it, it looks bad on all of us. You talk about used car salesmen. I bet there's plenty of totally honest used car salesmen. Hell, there's probably, half of them or more are probably nice, honest men and women just trying to earn a living. But they have a horrible, horrible reputation, deserved or otherwise. They have a bad reputation. YouTubers, same thing can happen. If you get these big channels that it comes out that they really love this game and they've really been covering this game a lot, and oh, what do you know? It comes out that they've been paid to cover it, then again, it's going to hurt the trust of them. And then people are going to say, well, if they did that, maybe this guy's doing it too, or maybe this girl's doing it too. So it does hurt everyone, and that's why it concerns me, because otherwise I'd be like, look, they can do whatever they want. If it doesn't affect me, I don't care. But it does affect me, so it's something that I'm going to keep an eye on. It's an interesting topic for sure, and it's something I definitely want to I'm very interested in watching to see how it goes one way or the other. But I'm cautiously optimistic to see things like this come up, because on the other side of this, it's just yet another piece of proof that shows how important YouTubers can be for a game. Well, I guess, to be fair, we haven't shown it's true, right? Because we'll see how, I guess, the Space Engineers' sales do when Yogscast is covering the game. If their sales aren't that much better when Yogscast is covering them and they have 7 million subscribers, maybe this isn't going to work. Maybe this is going to, the developer's like, you know what? This is not worth the hassle. It's not worth the PR hit. It's not worth the loss in sales. We'll just go back to what we were doing before and giving them free keys and maybe a few extra keys to give away or whatever. But it's not something that we're going to do. So I'm interested in that aspect too. I'm interested to see if this extra push that they're going to make for this game, because they're getting paid for it, actually ends up paying off in extra sales. And they made the comment here. Let me find that comment here. They make the statement, and I think this is paraphrased, so forgive me. They state that this is the first in a series of paid partnerships with devs in an attempt to give smaller developers a chance to reach a larger audience of games. Now, a lot of people seem to be taken aback by that statement. How are you giving smaller developers a chance to reach larger developers because they have to pay you? Well, if you're doing it in such a way that, let's say, for example, your game first month would have only sold 100 copies at $1 a piece, just for simplicity's sake. Well, let's say if Yogscast or Total Biscuit or whoever covered your game, and now you've sold 1,000 copies, you're giving them 10% of your revenue share. I'm not a mathematologist, but I'm going to say that that's probably going to end up paying off for you, right? Because you're getting a bigger immediate gain. Even though you're losing a little bit of money, it's still worth it in the long run, because now your game has sold so much more than it would have. Now, the other side of this, I think I've said it a few times, the other side of that is, will YouTubers not cover games that they know this is in place for? So, for example, with the Space Engineers, will people like Total Biscuit, Nerd Cubed, Northern Lion, other really huge popular YouTubers like Vertigo Tea Party, will they cover these games knowing that, in a way, they're actually helping Yogscast gets richer, right? So if the incredibly popular Vertigo Tea Party channel covers the game, and let's say that generates, 500 extra sales of the game, it's great. I made ad revenue on it, but on the other side, I made direct game sales revenue for Yogscast. So it doesn't hurt me. I mean, Vertigo Tea Party, whoever that is, what a handsome guy he is. It doesn't hurt him, but I think it probably leaves a bad taste in their mouth, right? you're doing these videos and this other channel is making money. So is that going to be enough for a lot of channels to say, you know what, I'm not going to cover your game if you do that? Is it enough to matter? Again, I think we'll see. Because for every big YouTuber who doesn't cover this game, I think there's 100 or more smaller channels that will say, ooh, me, I'll cover it, I don't care. So this could, it could cause an interesting case where, let's say a lot of the big YouTubers didn't cover Space Marines. You're still going to have tons of videos up on it because, one, it's a somewhat popular indie game, and two, a lot of YouTubers, small YouTubers, will know the big guys aren't covering it, so they see that as their chance to slip in because they don't have to compete in the search results with Nerdcube, Total Biscuit, Northern Lion, PewDiePie, Markiplier, whoever else is not going to do it. Does that make sense? So I don't think it's going to significantly hurt the indie, or whoever the developer is, in that way. I think they'll still be okay because they will still get plenty of coverage all around. Now, the type of people who just watch those big YouTubers and don't do searches for games or whatnot, now it's very true that you're not going to reach those people. And I don't doubt that a lot of people would never have searched for that game in the first place and might miss it because those big folks aren't covering it. So that's a very valid argument to make, but I don't think the hit will be big enough to make the indie developer kind of maybe shy away from the idea, unless the sales from these special deals with, say, like Yogscast is so small that the loss of those extra viewers from the big channels will actually cause it to like break even or maybe even lose. It's, like I say, it's a very, very interesting dynamic, and it's going to be. I'm very actually interested. I like to say interested is my cop-out word, but I actually am very interested to see how this plays out one way or the other. I obviously hope it goes well, but unlike some people, I'm not violently opposed to this. I can absolutely see it going wrong. I can absolutely see it causing a black eye against the YouTube community as a whole, or the YouTube video game people, semi-media people, whatever we are. I can see them getting a black eye for this and having people start to wonder who's trustworthy and who's not. But I think it's a natural evolution. It's been talked about for a while, and it's probably been, let's be honest, it's almost certainly been happening behind the scenes anyway, to some extent, where developers are paying for extra coverage. I don't know how widespread it is. I couldn't tell you. I know it's happened a few times. I know Total Biscuit, they think they did a special series for Wings of Icarus where they were paid. And of course this and others. But it's depending, especially if this is successful, if Space Marine sells very well, you might see a lot more of this. And things I think could get very interesting, at least if you're into watching how all this works. There's another question about integrity. Taking money from the developers and then showing the game off and being honest about it. Now, first of all, there's a lot of people talking about, oh, well, you're reviewing these games. You're kind of like games press. You're kind of like games journalists. You shouldn't be able to take money for this. That's wrong. We're not game journalists. Most of us are not game journalists. We're in the media just by, I guess, definition. But I'm not a journalist. Total Biscuit has said multiple times he's not a journalist. Or wait, I think he says he's not a reviewer. Maybe he says both. I don't know. But I know in particular he says he's not a reviewer. That's not what he does. So we're kind of in this weird gray zone where we don't have, like with the journalists, there's accepted journalistic integrity supposedly, and then there's a whole topic to be discussed about on that, but we won't do that right now. So there's supposed to be certain rules that they follow. But we're just dudes and dudettes with cameras and recording software and a YouTube connection. So we're not really bound by anything as far as that goes. But at the same time, we have kind of a understood relationship with our viewers that we're going to be honest, we're going to be upfront. We're just people like them. And we're just going to tell you what we think of the games. We're going to, if we're having fun, we're going to tell you. If we think it sucks, we're going to tell you. We're just going to be honest. It's just like if your friend bought a game or rented a game and played it for a week, and you're like, oh, hey, how was that game? Oh, it sucked. It was awful. It was buggy as hell and not fun and blah, blah, blah. The same thing applies here. So while we might not be held up to these other standards and rigid rules, there is that kind of implicit trust that's there. And if we do things that will endanger or harm that trust, that could hurt us as a channel, and it could hurt our popularity as well. The other side of the integrity question is, if I'm being paid by the developers to cover the game, I'm doing that thing again, I'm trying not to. If I'm being paid by the developers to cover their game, how honest am I really going to be about it? Because I can tell you, for me personally, and I talked to other LPers, and I know it's true for them, especially when we're covering indie games, sometimes it can be difficult to be rough on it. If it's a bad game, it can be difficult to slam it and say, this game sucks, stay away from it. And I will be the first to admit I criticize other people for doing it, but at the same time, I'm not harsh enough on some games that I think I should be harsh on, which I'm going to be working on in the future. An indie gamer chick, who is a fantastic reviewer, you should absolutely follow her channel. If I remember, I'll put a link to it in the description below. But she was posting about how people tend to treat indie games with kid gloves, and go, well, this game is all right. If you kind of look past the bugs, yeah, it's worth $20. It's bad. It's bad for the industry, and that's a whole side topic. But the long and short of it is, it's already can be difficult to be be harsh to these games. Now you're getting paid to cover it, and you could possibly be hurting. Well, there's two sides of it. One, the greedy side, right? I'm hurting potential future money if I'm badmouth this game. If I get paid to cover these games for EA, again, going back to that example, and I trash it, are other developers going to see that and go, I'm not going to pay this guy to cover our game, he might trash it? Which makes sense. If I was a game publisher and I was looking at possibly paying a YouTube channel to cover my game, and I saw this Vertigo Tea Party jackass, he got paid by EA to do it, and he thrashed the game, I'm probably not going to go to him. I might think my game's the greatest thing since sliced bread, but I'm still concerned that he won't like aspects of it and will just show it off and just trash it. So you're hurting yourself in that way. You're also, again, keep in mind, these people, and these YouTube folks are people too. When you get paid for this, you feel kind of bad to talk bad about a game, right? I mean, that's part of the reason I feel bad about talking about an indie game that I got, because most of the time I get a code for free, so they're giving me the free game, and which, that's just kind of the cost of doing business. To do let's tries and reviews of these games, I need a copy of the game. But you still feel like obligated a little bit to be nice to it, which I've gotten over that aspect of things mostly because I'm so used to getting the codes now. Humble brag. But if you're getting paid cash money to cover a game, you're going to be conflicted when you find things. And it might not even be conscious. These things that you might normally hate, you might just kind of push them aside. Your cognitive dissonance will kick in and go, well, I don't care. I didn't care that much that the crafting doesn't work. That sword I worked 10 hours to get, it bugged out. That's fine. I mean, it's the state of the game. It's cool. I can just go get another one. So there's that aspect too, is being true to yourself. And I think that's probably one of the biggest aspects to me is that. Because if you can't be honest about the game, you're doing a You're doing a disservice to the game. You're doing a disservice to the developers. You're doing a disservice to your viewers, and you're doing a disservice to yourself and your channel. So that is one of my biggest concerns, and that's one of the reasons I'm working very hard to make sure that I'm more honest and upfront and just direct with indie games. The same thing applies here. I think it would be difficult for almost anyone who's getting paid money to cover a game to thrash it on for that reason as well. Not just the greedy quote unquote reasons, but because they're paying you, so you kind of want to be like, oh well, that would be very disrespectful. That would be very unappreciative if I just talk shit about the game all the time and make fun of it and just show the bugs off. and discourage people from playing it. So there's that side as well. But that's pretty much, I think, all I had to say about the topic. In a long story short, I'm okay with the idea as long as you're transparent. Transparency, 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 transparency. I think that's so important, especially with this, that you are absolutely upfront with people. You don't do any sly crap where you just put a small description in the, like a one line in the video description or a quick line at the end of the video. I think it needs to be in the front of the video. I think it needs to be said within the first 20 to 30 seconds of the video that you're being paid for it. You don't have to disclose amounts. You don't have to say, we're getting 1% of the sales of this game or anything. But you need to make it clear that you are financially benefiting from covering the game. That way you're upfront with people. There's no worry about this stuff coming back and biting you later in the ass. Now, obviously, people are still going to question your integrity. If you cover the game and you just happen to just love the hell out of the game, and people are going to say, well, you're just saying all that you love all this stuff because you got paid. There's going to be people like that. And it's not an unfair argument, frankly, if you say you love everything about the game. Even if you do honestly love everything about it, it's still going to come into question because there's still that little lingering doubt that, well, he's getting paid, so maybe he's just saying that because of that, and if he wasn't, he'd be ragging on more parts of it. So it's going to be interesting, and again, I'm going to be very interested to see how it plays out, to see how successful it is, and I'm also very interested to see how YouTubers handle it. I think Total Biscuit, I disagree with a lot of what he says, but he's also very well spoken. I also think he's a very honorable person. I think he's very upfront, and I think he's very honest, and I respect that a lot. So that even though I don't necessarily agree with a lot of what he says or how he says it necessarily sometimes, I have a lot of respect for him, and this just builds on that. And I think he's going the right way. I think announcing you're going to do splash screens on all those videos is absolutely a good move, is a smart move, and it shows that he wants to address this head on, and I really applaud that. So kudos to him. I'm sure he's watching this right now, totally. But anyway, yeah, that's enough about that topic. Let me know what you guys thought of this video in the description below. Let me know what you think of this. What if I came on tomorrow and said, hey guys, I'm getting paid to cover Sims 4. I actually do like The Sims, by the way. EA, wink, wink. But I said, you know what? I'm going to be covering Sims 4. And, oh, by the way, they're going to pay me for every video that I do. What would you say? What would you think? Do you think I would still be honest? Do you know enough about me to say, well, he's going to be honest? Or would you be like, he seems a little shady. I don't know. I don't think I'm going to watch him anymore. Honestly, what would you do? I'm honestly curious what you guys' reactions are as viewers in all this. What you think of this? Are you going to respect any channel that does this less? Just even if they're upfront about it, you say, nope, I'm not going to watch you less, or I'm going to watch you less. Or you say, well, I'll watch, but I'm going to have a big, what is that? So I'm going to take it with a big grain of salt. So I'm very, very interested in what you folks think. The viewers, I'm very interested to say what you think of it in general, and what you would think if I did it. And this is not some kind of like passive way to be like, in a week I'm going to announce something, because trust me, I'm not big enough for any of these deals. Would I take them? Probably. But that's another thing, and I'll try. I've already said I'm going to stop, so I'll try to make this kind of quick. Another thing which I think is important is picking the games you want to do, right? If Team Meat came up to me and said, hey, we'll pay you to make a bunch of videos about Binding of Isaac, I probably wouldn't do it, because I don't like Binding of Isaac, because I don't like roguelikes, right? So I would be more inclined to take games I already like, but the counter to that is it might give the impression that I only like the games because I got paid, right? Because I'm only taking games that I'm generally going to be talking positive about anyway, then all my paid for videos will be positive. See, that in itself could be a problem. That's why I think this is a very interesting topic and an interesting discussion to be had about it. So anyway, I said I'd shut up, so I'm shutting up now. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to follow me on Twitter, and I will see you next time.